Thanks very much, Ken, and thanks to all our students. You know, I think it's very appropriate that we end GoMRI with the future, so it's really just a great series of comments. And Chen, you know, I was hoping you were going to mention that wave tank because you're in the first dispatches from the Gulf, and the expression on your face when that tank wave breaks was really remarkable. So I got a few closing remarks and some instructions coming up here. But you know, you got to end this with a statement, what a great ride. We couldn't have done it without you, and you are the GoMRI family. Most of you have been part of the program for many years. It's been a really personal and professional pleasure for me. I've made many new friends and had a great time learning about new science. And I'm a fisheries biologist, and I've had to learn about a lot of the topics we heard here today, and it's just been remarkable. We had an exercise at lunchtime, and I'm going to share with you some of the comments. And these have really not been filtered too much, but we asked a number, 5 different questions. And one of the questions, the first one's, what are the impacts of GoMRI? And so these are just some of the topics that we typed up to share with you, but it was, and I think they're really great. The breadth and depth of new partnerships, which we heard the students talking about. GoMRI was a model for long-term multidisciplinary research. GoMRI enabled their research ability to leverage other funding opportunities and new opportunities, and we're actually trying to track that. So if you pick up a project funded by any of the various funding agencies that might be potential sources using some GoMRI science that you have come up with, we want to know about it because we want to actually track that. One researcher said it changed the course and broadened my career and moved me into mesocosm research. Another one made the comment that it allowed for a strong effort in physics, and we heard Temai talk about that today, very important driver in oil spill dynamics. Another person said, and I was delighted to see this, given some of the comments from our user group panel, made my work more applied, and I had a great experience working with industry, and so it just exemplifies the fact we've made a lot of progress. Along the same lines, someone at the table said it proved my professional exchange with government, so also that's a nice home run. Of course, our international collaborators, we couldn't do it without them. There were 17 countries involved. And the final comment that we captured was better understanding of environmentally relevant exposures and dosages, and there's more to come on that as it relates to dispersants. The next question was, and this, to see the font got a little smaller here because we had a lot of feedback, what are some of the key science outcomes? And of course, that's what synthesis is all about. We're capturing that. We've heard back from our RFP5 investigators, our RFP6 investigators, and the consortia. So we've gotten some great information. But I thought these were also fascinating. One commented on the high-pressure experimental systems research, which was done over in Germany and other places, uncertainty associated with remote sensing of near shore. That was one of our key findings. And Tamai talked about this one. The surface of the ocean is full of narrow fronts with huge velocities that create mixing. Along the same lines, we have a much better understanding of sub-mesoscale processes and vertical connectivity. So that's all about transport, and it goes way beyond oil spills, which will be referenced well into the future. I like this one. Microbes are our friends. I think Mandy gave us a great example of why microbes are our friends, particularly as it relates to an oil spill. Another area was species-dependent responses of phytoplankton and bacterial interactions, and we'll see more on that come out through Core Area 3 and Core Area 6. Knowledge of the deep pelagic community and impacts, and Steve referenced that. There's not a great story there. It's an unfortunate story, but we'll see a lot more about that, and that's come out of Tracy Sutton's group, which has had a couple papers come out and is just getting ready to publish a dedicated volume of Frontiers. We've heard also from Tamai about river plume effect on oil transport and fate, and his answer very definitively was, does river transport affect oil movement? And he said yes, and that was a one-word answer. We heard a lot about marine snow from Mandy. We've heard about it for quite a while, and we have a lot going on there. We heard about from Cynthia, no, from somebody else, I forget who it was, about the unique acoustic data set on marine mammals that is going on at University of Louisiana Lafayette and in California. And our students, that was one of our key scientific outcomes. A shift in focus from short-term biological impacts to long-term sublethal impacts. We've had a lot of work done on that. Been a lot of debate about it, but it's not just how does a toxicological element affect an organism at that time, how does that toxicology affect and accumulate as sublethal impacts over time. A lot of neat work, and this was done in Core Area 6 on the use of omics as a tool for oil spill impact and recovery science. Mandy referenced that, and there's a wonderful paper there they're submitting to EOS that explains some of that. And then the complexity of environmental chemistry, certainly both Dr. Farrington and Dr. Rogers talked about there in their talk. So there's a lot more to come in synthesis, but it's just fun to get these nuggets for us to talk about going forward. We also heard a lot about we also asked about non-science programmatic outcomes, and these were also really, I think, rewarding. We built a community of scientists across the Gulf of Mexico and improved faculty interactions, and our consortia and small research teams have talked about that a lot. GoMRI was enough money and scientists to approach a complex system in a comprehensive way, and we think that's worked real well. And this is kind of scientific, but understanding how to approach other pollutant research, not just oil spills, but other inputs into the environment. And Ryan talked to us about asphaltenes, their dissolution, and they're coming off roads every time it rains. My students, this was plural, got jobs at Fortune 500 companies because they had integrative science experience, and we heard our students talking about that. So it's the exposure to a multidisciplinary team that makes students marketable instead of being silo-based. We have a new community of scientists to work on oil spill in the future, and certainly we look forward to their continued interaction with industry, NGOs, and government to help make that happen. Engagement with public policymakers, we will do more of that going forward, but we have been doing that a lot. Public awareness of oil spill sciences and impact, and we heard Sea Grant talking about their role in doing that, and they've done a very effective job. Focus on awareness of public and community health impacts. Melissa and Paul both talked about that. We didn't succeed in that area as well as the board had hoped, although we did try, but hopefully we can launch a new discipline in that area that will focus on these longitudinal long-term health impact studies. And another impact was, or outcome was the importance of outreach as part of organized research. And somebody wrote down, it's more than just K through 12, and that, all our research, at least through Sea Grant, it's got a K through 12 focus historically, but now we're breaking out and reaching out to other user groups. This will be one of the most important outputs of GoMRI Science is what's left to do next. What are some of the big caps? And here's some of the perspectives that we collected at lunchtime. We need test facilities to prepare for the next spill, particularly high pressure with gas at a large scale level. I know they've talked about that at Olmsted, and I've heard Steve Morawski talk about that, but we need to tailor up that type of research capacity as we go deeper and deeper into the ocean. Public and social health impacts, a baseline. Paul is talking about a health observing system, so that's a big gap, and we've heard that today. Predictive tools using what we have learned through big data, and we have huge data systems, both through NERDA, their diver data set, BP's data, and GoMRI's data, and we're beginning to see people mine that, and we hope they come up with some predictive tools in their modeling efforts that are available. Deep ocean circulation, as we go deeper, we need to learn more about things like the plume. Where is the oil or water going to go, whatever it happens to be. Effectiveness of restoration efforts, that's the next generation's problem. We have a lot of restoration efforts underway across the Gulf at the both federal level and the state level, and we hope they effectively evaluate restoration efforts so we can correct those as they undertake them. The larger geographical impact, the Gulf's is connected to several larger bodies of water and what's the transport that goes between those bodies of water and what's carried with them. This was a really interesting one. A gap is the risk of aging infrastructure, and I wasn't really sure which infrastructure, so I added some of my own thoughts. And we know that we have abandoned pipelines, we have old pipelines out in the Gulf, we have old oil and gas platforms, and we have roads and sewers that are in great need of repair. So it's not just out in the water, but what's the risk of aging of infrastructure? Research, this is another interesting, research on how to make response decisions under pressure. I don't know if NOAA and the Coast Guard and industry go through any kind of therapy training under pressure, but is that a variable when decisions are made? And there's certainly a science there, I know, in the military. A gap would mention was to maintain science connectivity post-2020. We hope you all continue to get together and do great work together, even though we're going away. Gene talked about this a little bit, connectivity between ecosystems and habitats, and we're doing a lot of that work in Barataria Bay, and I'm sure that will continue for many years to come. The synergistic effects of multiple stressors, I mentioned that a minute ago. These are multiple insults to an organism over time, toxicology-wise or other, and how does that add up, and what does it cost? And certainly humans are part of that community. And then the effect of subsea injected on dispersants on the surface expression of volatile organic carbon. And so we heard about that earlier in this afternoon's session. So then we tried to get some information on what people thought about our collective efforts on trying to reach the public. And of course, the top one I love, like Rita, I'm very biased, but Sea Grant is great. And they were a wonderful partner, and we thank the Gulf Sea Grant community for being part of GoMRI. A model the most substantial in depth effort of science collaboration to understand the impact of an environmental disaster, and a little bit of wording taken out of that one. GoMRI was its contact with the public was an effective program to engage public trusted leaders to translate and convey messaging. And again, Sea Grant helped with that, but many of our consortia did that on a daily basis through their outreach programs. Better explain scientific consensus and disagreement, and we've had a lot of that, which is great. That's what science is all about, but we want to make sure the public understands that, and I think we have done that well. In our efforts to reach the public, it's been a big program, and to understand oil spills and its interaction with the environment, we continue to contribute to that effort. A big program to educate the next generation of experts, and they were just sitting up here. And then provided the best characterization of hard-to-access sites, both financially and physically, but many are still poorly understood, and certainly the Mesopelagic is part of that community. So that's just a quick synopsis of what we collected at lunchtime. We thank you for that. But first, I want to make a few thank yous. You know, you can't end a show like this without recognizing the thousands of people who have been involved. But first and foremost, our deepest thanks to BP and Ellen, to you. Well, it looks like Ellen left. Ellen, to you for working with Rita, who made this all possible. I mean, I think it's just, your talk this morning was remarkable. We want to capture that conversation. Also, thanks to the Research Board for wise and dedicated leadership. Not to sound mundane, but we had the benefit on the board of over 600 years of research and administrative expertise, and I was part of that for about a year. But it's a huge amount, huge capacity, and a brilliant group of scientists and university administrators, and they were wonderful. The GoMRI management team, you know, what can we say? They are and were spectacular. Out of all the things I personally believe we built, the GoMRI management team has been most rewarding. It's a great example of how distributed management can work, because we are distributed around the country. It does work when everybody does their job responsibly and with perfection, and certainly this symposium is a great example. I have to say, you all rock. We thank the GoMRI family of researchers. Your science has and will speak for itself for many years to come. And there are a couple other subunits within things like consortia and the research programs I want to mention. The heart and soul of each research team rests with its program managers, particularly for consortia. We've come to know you well. You are great at herding cats. reporting, getting everybody together to respond to inquiries. You've really done an incredible job. We will miss you. You make your PIs look good, so thank you for everything you've done, and you know who I'm talking about. Our outreach teams have been spectacular. We heard from some of them this morning. It really has been a pleasure to work with the outreach team within GoMRI through the GMT and with the consortia. They've just done an incredible job. You've seen these wonderful video shorts today. Our partnerships with Sea Grant and Smithsonian have been incredibly rewarding, and also ScreenScope. I think all of you have seen dispatches from the Gulf 1 and 2. 3 is here. It will debut Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of this week at lunchtime. The rooms will be announced, but please go see yourself in action again. It's really a great roll-up of GoMRI and its past and perhaps the future. Another unsung suite of heroes are the data managers, starting with GridC, but also the data managers within all the research programs. We have set a new standard and demonstrated we can do it, and we thank you for that, and we will be proud of that for years to come. And you have done it very well. So I hope you're all planning to join the symposium reception. It starts at 6:30. We'll go from 6:30 to 9:30 at the Florida Aquarium. You got 3 options. You can hop on the trolley and take it to the aquarium. You can walk out the hotel, take a left. It's about a 15-minute walk down the beautiful river walk, very easy to get to, and the route is highlighted in blue on here, and I'm sure there are people who can tell you how to get there, and of course you can take an Uber or a taxi. We look forward to seeing you there and celebrating our 10 years. And before we leave, it's my honor to again invite Dr. Rita Colwell up here for the last word.
Thank you, Chuck. I'd like those slides, a copy of them, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. I, too, would like to thank all the speakers, the wonderful scientists, the outreach teams, partners, and the students, especially the students, for all the contributions over the past almost decade. And as Chuck just said, we hope you'll join us at the Tampa Aquarium. Now, I am going to have to leave on Wednesday because it's the celebration of the 70th anniversary of the National Science Foundation. And they brought together all the previous directors, those of us still living. And they've asked us to suggest what kind of science should be done in the future. So I have prepared, my strong suggestion is that it's really time for the NSF to fund major consortia to address national societal problems. Now, there's historic background for this. About 40 years ago, there was something called Research Applied to National Needs. It was a dud. It just didn't work. It was probably premature, and it wasn't very well organized. And in addition, to be fair, the NSF budget 40 years ago was only $1 billion or so. Now it's close to $8 billion. But I think it is something that we could ask the Congress to consider. And that is, right now they do fund consortia, but it's at the level of about $20 million over 5 years or even 10 years. But it's possible to request that there be 1 or 2 major consortia of $500 million over 10 years to address a major societal problem, such as the one that we have spent together over the last 9 years, going on 10 years. So in the future, the problems and the challenges facing society and decision makers are large scale. They are interdisciplinary. They will require strong linkage with social, behavioral, economic sciences, and not just physics, chemistry, computer science, and engineering. And GoMRI provides an excellent model for a multidisciplinary basic research applied, along with applied research, on illuminating solutions to a societal problem. So I think it's time for this kind of request to Congress to be made for new money to NSF, and so that's what I'm going to do on Thursday morning when I get my 5 minutes to say what should be done in the future. In addition, Chuck and I are working on an editorial for Science on what GoMRI is, what it's done, and what it can do for the country. Well, as you all know, it takes a village to pull a day like today together. There are a lot of people involved, but I'd like to recognize especially the Ocean Leadership folks, the AIBS, the American Institute of Biological Sciences folks who had contributed, and then especially to recognize the leader of today's wonderful symposium, Lee Zimmerman. Lee, where are you? Lee, somewhere here. She really needs a huge... So we thank you, Lee, for all you've done. I thank you all, the audience, and it ain't over yet, so keep tuned. Thank you.